After stay stitching the waist edges of yoke facings and skirt lining panels, the next step is to stitch the skirt front lining panels together. Pin the front lining pieces right sides together, matching notches. Stitch the center front seam of the lining. Use either a narrow zigzag stitch or a straight stitch. If stitching a straight seam, mark a seam allowance line on the fabric. While sewing a straight seam, stretch the fabric as you sew. Make sure to backstitch at both the ends of the seam. This is how the seam will look after stitching. As you stretch the fabric, the seam will not snap. Press the seam and then press the seam allowances open. Right sides together, matching notches, pin front yoke facing to front lining. Pin the sides and then pin midways. Right sides together, matching notches if any, pin yoke facing to the skirt lining. When pinning the skirt lining to yoke facing pieces, be careful here not to mix up which side is center back and which side is side seam. Pin center back, pin side seam, and then pin midways. Pin the other back skirt lining to back yoke facing. All the yoke skirt lining pieces are sewn together from one seam to another. This is called continuous sewing. Make sure to backstitch both the ends of each piece. This is how the front yoke facing lining panel will look after stitching. These are the back yoke facing lining panels after stitching. If the stay stitching seam is visible from the right side, take a seam ripper and rip the visible seam in that area only. Press the seam to remove any ripples and then press the seam allowances toward the lining. This is how it will look after stitching and pressing.